Let's talk about Left 4 Dead 3. What was once a game that felt as if it was right around the corner is now something that publicly we think we're aware of the fact that it's completely dead. We just released a brand new line of Tyler McVicker merch. We have like 1,000 new items. That's a lie. We have like a dozen new items, and they're really great for holiday gifts if you're a big fan of this dumbass. I was late on the point. The story of Left 4 Dead 3 in the public's eye starts when the Jira mailing list leaked 2 different times throughout 2013. Jira is an internal bug reporting software that attaches names and employees to specific projects so that when information related to game development is reported, those individuals are informed. The mailing list was found by an anonymous user and reported to Valve Time back in early 2013, and at that time, Valve Time had only really distributed the names of the ongoing projects internally at Valve. And on that list were things like Half-Life 3 and Left 4 Dead 3. However, Left 4 Dead 3 had multiple teams working on it, things specifically for audio and gameplay design, having separate teams. Again, the list was accessible in October of 2013, and Valve Time, when told about it a second time, actually delved more information, this time giving the names of the employees working on specifically the Left 4 Dead 3 and Half-Life 3 projects. Left 4 Dead 3 was already over 50 people, which back in 2013 would have been only second to the Portal 2 development team. It was around the same time that, because of the international, some international Dota 2 teams were given tours of Valve software, and one of the people on a random team that I don't remember the name of took a picture of an internal changelog, also discussing the ongoing developments and changes to the in-development Left 4 Dead 3. In early 2014, a leaker by the name of Seaboat got a hold of Valve's internal backend for Source 2 developed content, and on NeoGAF leaked an internal presentation showing off what Source 2 was capable of from a brushwork perspective, which at this point had switched entirely over to models. The image of the Left 4 Dead 2 plantation, of course, went everywhere and was not representative of a game, but instead was a tech demo, where a player would push a button and see the scene switch from Source 1 to Source 2. In early 2016, the SteamVR Performance Test Bench demo was released to the public, a piece of software that allowed users to test their computer to see if it was ready for the consumer-grade VR that was about to release in the HTC Vive. The program ran an abridged version of Valve's own robot repair demo to be able to test certain in-depth scenes to see if the computer was strong enough. This game, unfortunately, had some manifest IDs leak, effectively IDs that attributed to earlier builds of the game still stored on Steam servers that, through a command line program, could be downloaded by anyone in the public. The build of the game that was released was in February of 2016. However, the earliest build that was still available through these IDs was in July of 2015 and was absolutely chocked full of in-development assets for both Half-Life 3 and Left 4 Dead 3. Later that year, upon release of Destinations, the program that later turned into SteamVR Home, and its toolset, released a tutorial on how to import Source 1 content into Source 2 for Destinations. And on the Wikipedia page showing this tutorial, Tristan Reidford's frequently used folders was shown accidentally for a short period of time, one of those frequently used folders being titled L4D3. Over the years, we have also seen many screenshots and pieces of art from Left 4 Dead 3, and it was very much up in the air as to what exactly was going on with this project. It wasn't until after the release of Half-Life Alyx and Jeff Keighley's publication of the final hours of Half-Life Alyx that we received some information on what was going on with the project. According to Valve, through Keighley, this was a project that was only really in development for about a year, and then was transferred over into VR in a prototype called Hot Dog, only to then be overtaken by the Half-Life Alyx project. This doesn't line up with all the information we have publicly available to us. It seems as if in hindsight that Left 4 Dead 3 was in development in some capacity between 2012 and 2016. Left 4 Dead 3 was something that I was communicating directly with specific Valve sources on, and in fact represents the very first time I ever communicated with a Valve source privately. Through this conversation, I learned a lot about the game at the time. This conversation took place in October of 2016. And at that time, the game was still very much in development, and according to my source, was something something that could have been released in early access that day if Valve really wanted to. The game was running on Source 2, but there were many individuals at Valve that thought Source 2 was not up to task and they wanted to switch over to Unreal. However, there were a lot of other employees that wanted to stick with all the work they had done at that point because the version of Left 4 Dead 3 they were developing on only really needed final art passing, voice work, and a polish round, about a year of development, before they could fully release it as a game in itself. Left 4 Dead 3, according to the final hours of Half-Life Alyx, was supposed to be taking place in Morocco. It was more of an open world game where each of the playable survivors, of which there were 8, were supposed to have a bit of an Overwatch hero complex going on, where each of the survivors had their own stats, starting weapons, weaknesses, buffs, etc., etc. These concepts, of course, made their way into Back 4 Blood somehow, even though it seems that Turtle Rock and Valve did not collaborate on that project whatsoever. A very strange occurrence. The Left 4 Dead 3 that we were shown off both in the leaks of things like the screenshots of those Moroccan levels, the art that Moby Frankie did at some point and published to its portfolio, and also what Valve was comfortable talking about. Even though the final hours of Half-Life Alyx did go into the most publicly known information on Left 4 Dead 3, it still wasn't that much, and some of it actually contradicts other Valve statements and some of the information that we have available to us, most notably the development timeline. In early 2020, I had a conversation with a different internal source that showed off some gameplay of some then unreleased games, including Half-Life Alyx and Codename Hot Dog. I tweeted about that, and Valve actually responded, stating that they were not developing Left 4 Dead 3 or Left 4 Dead VR, and in fact, those projects didn't exist. A few months later, they actually went back on that statement and fully talked about Project Hot Dog and Left 4 Dead 3 in the final hours of Half-Life Alyx, a small detail that still hurts me to this day. Thanks, Valve. In hindsight, we know that Left 4 Dead 3 was a project that fell apart due to the same reason most projects fall apart: internal office politics. There were a lot of people that wanted to continue working on the game, specifically in Source 2, but even more people didn't want to do the hard work and finish up that engine. Even today, with the release of Half-Life Alyx, Source 2 is nowhere near complete. Valve didn't ship basic functions within the Source 2 development kit they actually gave out to people that they promised through Half-Life Alyx, and Left 4 Dead 3 was a game that was near finished nearing the end of 2016. So, over that 4-year period, when Left 4 Dead 3 was almost ready to be shipped in an early access form, and Half-Life Alyx was shipped in the early half of 2020, that engine definitely had to undergo a lot of development. So if a game was nearing completion but the engine was nowhere near finished, why didn't anyone take it upon themselves to finish up that engine? It comes back to a quote that Gabe Newell told me during our interview. Not everybody can eat marshmallows all the time, effectively meaning working at Valve is not always a perfect situation. Hard work needs to be done, and that hard work is something that most people will stray away from when something easier is capable to be done, especially something easier that is more of a given in terms of its value generation properties, which is why we see a lot of work being done on the CSGO and Dota 2 fronts. True to the game development tradition, many concepts from Left 4 Dead 3 were recycled all over the Valve releases of the last 10 years, most notably, and of course, Half-Life Alyx. The leaked retired engineer face texture thing that was leaked back in 2016 eventually became the inspiration for Russell through a weird character design process that we will go into detail in another video, but it effectively went Laszlo and the retired engineer were two different characters, then Left 4 Dead 3 was canceled, Laszlo was scrapped, the concepts kind of melded into Yosef, and then we got Russell later. Basic level design, basic level geometry from Hot Dog, aka Left 4 Dead VR, was recycled in the earliest days of Half-Life Alyx. And the basics of the VR interaction system did have their beginnings in Hot Dog, aka Left 4 Dead VR. Left 4 Dead VR was a single-player game, by the way, and was one of the reasons why everybody thought, why do this in the first place? The only things we're going to be seeing that actually take inspiration from Left 4 Dead 3 from Valve is Citadel. Citadel has inspirations from a bunch of canceled projects in the same way Half-Life Alyx did all over their history. Citadel is taking inspiration from Left 4 Dead AR, Jerry Ellsworth's own project, the canceled Half-Life Tactics, the exclusive Nintendo Switch Half-Life RTS, and of course, Alien Swarm. There were a lot of Alien Swarm updates in the works, and then Jeep Barnett got bored and they stopped working on them. Citadel is the closest thing we're ever going to get to Left 4 Dead 3 over the next couple of years, and to be completely honest, especially when Valve is in the work from home environment, very little is getting done. Sure, there are rumors that the next VR headset is incoming, and that is absolutely true, but we are still a few years out before that is even announced. The Steam Deck was delayed, the next VR headset is still years away. Left 4 Dead 3 could have easily happened if Valve was just a bit more organized and had a bit more employee accountability. It didn't, and it fell apart. Valve, for some reason, is not telling the whole truth in the final hours of Half-Life Alyx. The game was in development for significantly longer, and although the lack of full features in Source 2 was the problem, it wasn't the reason it was cancelled. It was a disagreement in whether or not to move forward in Source 2 or to use the Unreal Engine 4. Left 4 Dead 3 had a lot of work already completed and somehow was going to use an open world quest-based formula, a concept that was taken from the then canceled Half-Life 3. Again, everything Valve does, and this is something that can be seen all over the games industry, is just a Frankenstein's monster of a bunch of different canceled projects, and Left 4 Dead 3 was no different. When looking at publicly stated information from Valve, always take it with a little bit of suspicion, because Valve's own internal problems definitely do not paint them incredibly well, so they will skew things to make themselves look a bit better. Left 4 Dead 3 was in development for significantly longer, and was far further along than they're leading people on to believe. But hey, what can you do? Thanks for watching. Check out my Twitter page to keep up with all the information I cover in real time, and check out my Discord server, which isn't really run by me and is kind of a hellhole, but it's fun. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Take care of your loved ones. Adios.